Alrighty. Hello everybody. Dystopia AU anyone? Now, with that being said, I think that it does give somewhat of a brief idea. Now, how this series will work rule of power. It's quite simple. The better your quirk is in society, no, the better your quirk is, the better place in society you are. So pro heroes like Endeavor and All Might who have massively powerful quirks, they're considered to be at the top of the class. And the class system actually is replacing the hero system. Now, Deku, he was born to zero parents, or as people refer to them, the lowest form of the class system. You have pros who would be on top. You have people who are having good abilities, who have powers that are somewhat useful and actually powerful, like telekinesis. That puts you pretty high on the rankings already. But then there are also more rare and rare abilities, which do actually somewhat stagnate in rarity. And some people know about these abilities. Some people have them. Some people don't. And then there's actually the middle class. That does somewhat vary because of how wide it is. And it actually does somewhat make up the higher tier towards the high end, and it does go somewhat down to the low end, towards the zeros, which are quirkless. Now, that is the middle class. And the lowest class, quirkless. People don't really seem to care about them. Now, for this AU, I want to say at least 10 to about, let's say maybe 8% of the population. So around 750 million people, or so around maybe 600 million, are about quirkless in this world. Now, Deku, the day he was born was quite something. However, he was not born in a regular hospital. He was born in a place somewhat run down, a place somewhat abandoned by society and governments. Proper governments. The world fell apart one day over 200 years ago, and people never recovered. People never changed. They saw powers as a way to glamorize things and claim fame, and that's what the world clung to. The world never had heroes form, because sadly, no one was that good at the time. They were just people who had ideas about power and what they do with it. Some were villains and some stopped them. And some tried to be vigilantes, but yeah, that didn't last very long. In the end, evil came to rule. And that said quite a lot. And Deku, the day he was around 4 years old and he discovered his abilities, his parents, they were so happy. They thought Deku might have been born with a power, or maybe he was just another zero. I mean, both of their parents were zeros before them, but the parents before them, at least on Inko's side, they were part of a higher class system, the middle class. I just bit my tongue. Hold on one second. Alright, I'm fine. I'm not bleeding. Anyways, now, right now, Inko, she is quite happy. Her son, he has powers. And the day he discovered them, he was definitely something. At first, the two were kind of confused as to what his abilities were, but they wanted him to train them. They wanted him to do more. And whenever Izuku stopped showing up to a very rundown school, a lot of kids already knew what happened. There are two missing from class that year. And the teacher? They don't say a word. They just turn back and go back to what they were doing. Because that's how things are. That's just how society is. And sadly, no one can really change it. And then Deku, he does start to develop more and more of his own powers. His parents thought he may have had a speed quirk. I mean, he's running around faster sometimes, and then there's actually where he seems to be teleporting around. And the moment they discover that, they're ecstatic. They want to try and use their son to get to a higher point in society. He may be taken away from them, but there's also a chance that he can still have them in his life. That's just how things are. He'll need a guardian. He'll need someone to take care of him. And people, yeah, they see it quite like this. Izuku, he has a powerful ability, but they're not sure what it really is, because the doctors that they've taken Deku to, they try to diagnose him, but even they seem to be a little stumped. I mean, quirk science isn't really as developed as it was in MHA, but there are some unethical things that are developed, such as enough knowledge about a quirk to enhance it, enough knowledge about a quirk to lower its power, or even just simply stop any disastrous effects those abilities might have. And that is another thing. The doctor, he does his work for free because it's quite simple. Someone medically trained and in the knowledge of quirks, they're a pretty powerful ally. But they're also a pretty powerful person for one reason. People in powerful positions owe them favors, and they have information that could destroy their position in the rankings. Because it's simple. Their quirk isn't naturally that strong. They enhanced it years ago. Their place in society is a fake, and that can destroy a reputation quite badly. You'll be seen as worse than a zero if that's the case. But many people try to hide that fact. They try to hide that information. And Deku, there was where his parents wanted to try and increase his powers, try and see exactly how well they can make him in society. They wanted to give him the highest rank possible. And Deku, he just didn't understand. He didn't understand the system. He didn't understand why. He wanted to make friends. He wanted to have fun. He just wanted to live a life. But his parents, they started forcing him to do all these things and use his powers. And he doesn't like it whenever everything freezes for a couple seconds. And Deku, yeah. If his parents knew what his power really was, they'd be more forceful. They'd be more direct about getting procedures done. They want their son to be the best. And if he has a rare power, then they'd push him more, push him further. And Deku, he somewhat didn't understand that. His parents, they wanted the best for him. But they also didn't understand they were scaring him. They were putting too much on him. He was only a child. And Deku, whenever his parents had a procedure scheduled, he ran away. He used his abilities and got out. And whenever his parents discovered that, they were furious. They wanted to find their son. And Deku, he was running. If he's not a zero, then he doesn't belong here, right? That's what they said. He doesn't belong here. He doesn't like the cold house. He doesn't like the poor food, the crappy quality. He doesn't like any of it. And right now, Deku, he goes to run fast. People see him pop up and disappear every couple feet. And Deku, yeah. Whenever someone doesn't see Deku pop away, they start looking at the spot he was at. Before there was where Deku, he actually collapsed and he was 5 steps forward. Him sitting there, panting heavily. And people are confused. Some actually staring at him, and others are just watching. Some beginning to record, and others they're confused about what to do. Because he's dressed as a zero, but he has a quirk. And from what they can tell, that was what was that? Weak teleportation? I mean, a weak enhancement ability. He's out of breath, but he blitzed, right? So he showed off his powers here to what? Get out of his spot? Well, he definitely fucking did that. Now, Deku was taken away by officers, as I'll call them. Now, these people, they took him away. And they actually did more and more tests. They discovered Deku, he had an ability. But whenever it was time for a proper doctor to try and find out what it was, they were stumped. I mean, the research here suggests that Deku, he belongs in high society, not middle society. But that also is weird. So they need to figure out what to do. If his parents are zeros, they need to be dealt with. His past definitely will catch up to him one day. And the information needs to be buried. Hmm. Okay, so they need to kill the zeros and then just go on with their day. Zeros starve every day. It's no problem. And even then, they just murder each other, so who cares? Someone will think it was just a home invasion from a hungry person. That's currently on someone's mind. As Deku, he was adopted, and right now he was surprised. He had a warm shower for the first time in his life. He had a proper stomach filling meal, one that he had and then slept in a warm bed, one that didn't feel itchy, one that didn't feel scratchy, one that didn't reek of dirt or filth. And Deku, he actually was quite surprised. And the person who adopted him, they were actually quite intrigued. They wanted to know more about Deku's powers, and they actually wanted Deku to understand society. And Deku, from that point onward, he had a very narrow view of things, and it somewhat annoyed him. They tried to teach him their ways. They tried to influence his mind. They tried to poison him by society. But Deku, he had enough anti-venom. He knew already, because he was smart enough to know, this isn't right. People deserve to be treated like people, not lesser. Not like they're just some scum off of the bottom of your boot. And that's where Deku, he decided to try and do a few things. Yes, he started to develop his powers more. And whenever he was a teenager, he actually asked the question and was told about what happened to his parents. His parents were zeros and they were killed in a home invasion. But Deku, he knew the truth. People in that neighborhood were nice. They shared. They gave everyone what they needed. His parents, they gave a little bit of the excess food they have and could spare to a family that had a pregnant wife. And Deku, he knows that that family, they're probably dead now. It makes him sad. He knows how people were treated back then, but the people on top don't know how the bottom works. But the people on the bottom know how the top works. People look down from the ivory tower. They can spit at you, scream at you, and do what they want. And all you can do is look up and watch. People are stuck in these roles. And Deku, he does not really like that. And we do actually have it a fancy party, where a lot of people are talking. And currently, Deku, he is somewhat walking around. Him looking at a few of the things that people have prepared. It's definitely an interesting thing. It's definitely a nice event. But it's something he has to deal with, sit here and watch. It's definitely something intriguing. Now, someone has come walking up to Deku, and whatever they do at least go to ask him about his particular abilities. And Deku, he does start the person before he is going to tell them. It's not something that she should really concern herself with. But then again, Deku bring his hand up and going to pull down his sleeve to show a bracelet, one that does have a number on it. And a lot of people are very confused about that. Now, Deku is going to ask the person exactly if they can see his wrist. And Deku, he does going to at least bring his hand out as the girl's going to hold out her hand. And Deku is going to see the number on it. Very much nice to meet you. The pleasure's all mine. I believe I'm the one who should feel honored here. I believe that is true, yes. I am of a higher status. Intriguing. Now, we actually are very close, and I do like that. So, I can see you as my equal. I wouldn't say that. I would. My abilities are creation. I can create anything another make above. And I can make anything. Because my powers are just that good, and I'm that good. So, let's cut to the chase. How about we make someone who can have a better role in society? Awfully forward, aren't you? I am, yes, but then again, quirk marriages, they're still a thing, aren't they? They are. But then again, I'm curious to know. what do you think of a few things? Deku swirling around his glass, as he's going to turn and walk over. Him going to walk outside and look out to the city. It's a very beautiful place. All the pretty lights, all the pretty buildings. But then there's those spots out in the distance. The lights suddenly stop. And then there's nothing. There's nothing for miles, except for small little dots. Deku knows what those dots are. People lighting fires to stay warm. People doing what they can to stay warm. And that does tell Deku a lot. Him currently going to lean against the railing and turn to look at Miss Yaoyorozu. So, what exactly did you want again? I was hoping that we can have a bit more of a high society here. I've talked to a number of people, and my father, he's looking for a number of candidates. But then again, I haven't really found someone I've deemed to be necessary. Someone good. And your abilities. The ability to Deku freezing time, walking forwards and around Momo. Him going to bring his hand up over her mouth, as he is then going to bring his other hand out and around her waist. And Momo, she actually does go to say freeze before time is going to resume. And Deku, he doesn't sit there as Momo, she's very confused. For 1 second, she was sitting there calmly. She was confident. She had something already prepared in her mind. But then Deku was gone, and it took her a second to realize it. She felt the person grab her, and she felt like Deku was still sitting there. But then Deku, he actually brought his hand out from her mouth, expressing to Momo, going to lean his head over her shoulder. She already knows his abilities, so don't try to make a big fuss about them and talk about them to him. Does she understand? I do. Now, if you'd please release me, we can have a proper conversation. Or would you rather just have me here? No. They're going to back away, and then go to turn, walking back over to the balcony and grabbing his drink, before we're going to spin around and look at Momo, leaning against the railing. He'll tell her this. His abilities are quite simple, but what does she know of him? I know a number of things. Really? Yes. I know that you are something important. You seem to be definitely full of yourself. And right now I want to know, exactly what will you do? Will you accept my offer, or will you just walk away? Will you run with your tail between your legs? I don't run, Miss Yaoyorozu. Of course you don't. But then again, I am curious. What will you do? What will you pick? Will you accept me or miss out on your chance? Huh. Miss Yaoyorozu, how about this? They go stepping forwards and getting right up into her face. Her still going to look up as her face starts to turn a little red. Deku going to stare down at her, telling her, leaning forwards directly in front of her face. How about he gives her his number? They talk a bit more, and they see how things go. If things are adequate, then they'll meet again. They'll talk again. And maybe they may actually bump a bit of uglies. You know, it's not required for them to be married. But people, they like to see them like that. It inspires great confidence. And the class rankings, they make the person you marry your equal. Is that what she wants? Now, Deku is going to stare directly at Momo. And Momo should stare directly at Deku. And Deku can tell. She doesn't care about being his equal. She just cares about being better. And Deku can definitely use that. Being an equal isn't enough for her. She's hungry for power. And the Yaoyorozu Corporation, its influence, it definitely does sicken him. Deku turning back around. They're going to lean against the railing. He does have to tell Momo a few more things before he himself is going to leave the party and head out. Now, Deku doesn't head directly back home. Instead, he does head down somewhere simple. He heads out of town, and he does at a park before walking into the forest. He made sure to cover the car. He made sure that no one who followed him could find it. He pulled off the road and drove for 5 minutes. He then went to go pull the car into something he built. A small little hut, or, in the best way of saying it, a tent made of sticks, brush, and, well, a net, or something you can put over the building. Basically a tent. Now, whenever Deku did go to park the car there, he went to go step out of it. Him going to close the door, and then going to walk around. Before Deku, he went to go close this thing off, it looking a little bit more natural. As Deku, he does a walk over to a door, him making his way downstairs. Before he does a look at the table with his plan set up. A number of things need to happen. A number of things need to be done. Society needs to change. And maybe him. Someone destined to be at the top. Somebody destined for greatness. Maybe one day he can change things. But if he's going to destroy the system, how about he becomes the number one first? Deku currently thinks that, as he has ideas about what to do. People he may need to kill to get to the top. People who are better off either dead or, well, taken out of the equation. Now, with that being said, I do hope this somewhat does give a good look into the story. And yeah, there's kind of a lot of layers and things hidden here. Because a class system, a ranking, I mean, yeah, this is like really, really direct about a lot of shit. And I'm both intrigued by it and also a bit worried to cover it. So I do want to hear you guys' feedback about the idea. Please feel free to leave comments below.